if you're not actively looking for a job, then they'll be sanctioned and they'll take away your finances and so on, which is public finance, right? But it's very, very difficult. So we work with them. Of course, we work with all these caseworkers. They know of us. We spend quite a lot of time having good relationship with them, understanding what's going on, because this is a very hot political topic, so there's a lot of changes always. And it makes a really big difference who's the mayor of the city of Copenhagen, how you do, because if you have, normally we say on the right, then you will say like, okay, well, people have to be strict always. And maybe if you're on the left, generally you will say like, oh, we have to help people, we have to bring everybody up, so I'm being a little bit, you know what I mean. It's a very classic thing. So it's very changing. So it kind of demands a lot from us actually, knowing them and building personal relationships. And I usually say like 1 in 2 is a good person to cooperate with, and 1 is 2 is not. They're simply too far away from what we want to do. Because you can have, when you work with people that are unemployed, you can say like, okay, they just have to go into a normal company and they have to figure it out. And if they don't show up, I'll take away their money. It's not necessarily a bad way to do it, but it just doesn't work for everyone. And if you're coming back from stress-related or anxiety or depression, some kind of illness, you can push all you want. It's not going to help. So that is kind of what we want to do. We're building a platform. We're building a big base where you can come in and you can start up. You can start if you're coming back from the stress illness. You can start here in 2 hours, and then we'll work our way up. And we'll help you along the way to figure out what is going on. Yeah, maybe I should go into that a little bit more. But that is one group that we work with. So we have people that actually have careers that are depression, anxiety, stress. It's very difficult to figure out, but that is some of the main reasons why these people. Yeah, have you tried that as well? Yeah, a lot of people have. So, and that's the problem. Like, if you're ill, but you have to go back to work soon, how are you gonna prepare for work if you're sitting at home? And the offer you have is like, okay, you can wait 2 more months if you're lucky, maybe you can, and then you have to go back and you have to work. Then I work 37 hours, 37.4 hours a week. How do you go from 0 to 37.4? Yeah, people actually get sick from being in the system as well. So that's kind of the main thing. But that's a really big political change. You need to be able to do that. But once people you can start them up in 2 hours, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And often we'll work with, say like, okay, you start up with low complexity and few hours. And then we'll work with either complexity in work or the hours that you spend here. That's a very normal way, and we can do steps, you can step it up always. And of course it's more expensive, because we need to get paid a little bit to be able to do that, otherwise we don't have the time for it. Otherwise I have to help people with handicap, basically, because that's the organization that I'm working with. So we get paid a few hours a week. It's not a lot. We maybe have 2, maybe 3 hours a week to help, and in that work is a lot of coordination. We also have to give some kind of feedback to the caseworker, and we have to have talks and so on. But generally, we try to just make a workspace where they can come and but it's safe and it's a nice place to be, and we can start it out slow. So
can I?
Yes.
Who is the one who is recognizing the need for this? Is this the person who is trying to find the job, or is this the caseworker, or who is the one who is recognizing the need? I believe that this is the hardest. I have many
caps on. As I said, my work is very diverse, and one of them is selling and being able to telling people that we exist. We have very good results. So people that know us and have the same attitude towards these people that we work with, they use us again and again and again. And sometimes we go out and I'll do something like this. It will be quite different what we talk about, but I'll go out without and tell that we exist and how we'll do it and what we can offer and why we work the way we do. And we've been doing it for 7 years now. The reason we can continue doing it and that the caseworkers keep sending people to us is that it actually works. So we get cases get closed, or we get them to education, or we get them to work, or at least we get them ready to be able to participate in a whole different other array of offers that will help them along the way. So I'm also selling part of the time.
Can people come by themselves? That's also.
They
can, but we have to go back and find a caseworker that is responsible for the case.
So the
we have that
caseworker
as
would
well.
be the one who is recognizing the need.
Yeah, it will be the caseworker. So we spend a little bit of time.
So someone who loses his job oftenly because he cannot find himself in a job would be a person that who has to speak with someone to find out the reason why is it that he cannot work, for a longer time, for example.
That's a caseworker.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have the caseworker.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little bit different what area they're in. Sometimes they have like 30 people, sometimes 100. If they have 100, it's more difficult for us because we need to have that dialogue. So we work mostly with the people that have maybe 30 cases, so they actually have a little bit of time to go into interact with us and figure out what is the good plan. And also, like we have to continue to explain what we're working with and how it's getting better all the time. So as long as there's progress, we can continue it. Otherwise, it's really hard to have long, what do you call that? Long stretches of time where you work with the same person, because normally it's like 3 months here, 2 months here, and you have to try different things and they'll see what works. And then suddenly we'll find the right combination and then you'll be well. And of course, the switching between offers and the waiting is very, very hard. You have to be continuously working, especially if you have like anxiety or depression, or if you're just a young person who has to be helped to get out of bed in the morning a little bit. Then you have to these breaks that are very common, 1 or 2 months, where they're looking for a new place for you to be an intern, or you have to do this course, but it doesn't start until May 1st. Then you're sitting at home for a month and a half, and everything you learn, you lose, right? Yeah.
Mikael, I have a very specific question. Your organization is here. The beneficiaries with different illnesses or anxiety or anything.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
Yes, I'll try. Again, your organization is here. The beneficiaries, final beneficiaries, somebody with autism, for instance, or anxiety is here.
Exactly.
You have the caseworkers. Just a bit. The caseworker is responsible for the, let's say, day-by-day evolution of this client, the final beneficiary. Is that correct?
Well, actually,
No,
I would say
not
it's
totally
more
responsible, because you design to.
They are ultimately
you
responsible.
design the agenda,
Yeah.
but the responsibility, direct responsibility is here.
Yeah.
Caseworker.
Yeah.
In this respect, if the things are going well, perfect, so day by day, because you discuss about a more inclusive society, the Danish society could be a more inclusive one.
Yeah.
Meaning that for people with different disabilities, one day possibility for a job exists.
Yes.
Okay, so the responsibility, again, direct responsibility is for the case, let's say worker, the responsibility is, but at the same time, let's say the legal responsibility is yours, because the case workers are yours. No?
No, I don't know. It's like
You employ the case worker? No, it's a question.
no.
You
no.
employ them because you said that you work under the umbrella of municipality. You said like that.
It's all part of the city of Copenhagen. So we are colleagues in a way.
You are colleagues.
Yeah.
Okay, but the organization is, let's say, financially subordinated to the municipality in terms of social care.
Yeah.
It's subordinated. Because I want to understand
But
the mechanism.
it's like Gordana's place. You offer courses to people, and you are paid from the municipality or
That's
authority.
different.
But here, the difference is that Mikael and his staff are paid and employed by the municipality, but function as you. They offer these services to 50 interns. So the caseworkers are the ones who say, you should go to Mikael, and Mikael comes and say, we have a splendid offer.
Understand.
So it's the caseworker who is the legal.
Why I asked because for instance, in our case in Romania, an institution like yours is totally budgeted by the state, meaning public money from the council,
Yes.
from the municipality. Here I understand also that you have a budget. You don't have.
We actually don't have a button. That's why. But that's
No,
very,
it's
very
just a
unique to
question.
team up.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very good question.
It's
a good question.
You have to be very much. That's why I asked. Because in fact, you have to pay. I'm looking as a manager. I am a manager. Henry is the manager, in fact. And I'm looking for which way you support with money your employees, month by month. Because okay, that's the first question. Which way you support the salaries, and at the same time, which way you charge with new cases, the case, the same worker.
Yeah.
Because it's your responsibility to decide. You have 20 plans here, potential. You decide where everybody will go, to this case worker or to the other case.
No, there's,
We
but
are
actually,
talking about management.
the caseworker is the one who brings the person to us. So maybe it's easier if I'll try. So this is City of Copenhagen, the organization. There's a mayor, and then we have different departments. So this department, they take care of the roads and the lawns and everything. They run the schools. These run the kindergartens. And this is the social department. So here we have people with disabilities, we have psychiatric treatment, we have kids with disabilities, and so on and so on. And we have also something that, well, it's not disabilities, but well, more mental, and we have all these people that go home to people and help them maybe a few hours a week, and so on and so on and so on. So all these social services are in what is actually called SOF in Danish. So yeah, well, I'll actually just trying to do it over here. So this is our mayor. So we have a common mayor, and then we actually have a mayor here, who's responsible for all the social services. And that's one part. Then we have the people that work with unemployment. That's a different leg. And there's almost no interaction between these. So you have, I'm just going to use it in Danish because it's called BIF, but they work with unemployed people, all kinds of. And these two sectors are completely different. The people that work in them are completely different. The way they talk about people is completely different. It's very, very difficult to work within this. We have a department that's supposed to make sure that things happen here, but nothing happens. It's very, very difficult.
The same organigram.
So it's still yeah.
Exactly like that.
Yeah. So all this is Copenhagen, but they have, of course, their own budget. Mm-hmm. Of course, these people have a budget. The caseworker works here. We work over here. And I can say but it's not the normal way to do things. If you needed to work together is, okay, you say I know you have a budget. Do you have room for my client? I have a client who also needs something from you, and then maybe you can work together. But we work as a work of business. We are a workplace. So we might as well be the supermarket at the corner, or the one who manufactures windmills, or whatever, a gardener. It could be anything, and that's our room. And when they come to us, we say we would love to help you. We would love to take you in, and then we'll sit down and we'll make a plan. And then we'll say, okay, what does this person need? How much do we need to help this person in order for them to be able to show up every day and get into this positive circle of being here, being around people, learning new things, be able to trust yourself again, and so on and so on and so on. learning new things. And maybe that would be like 3 hours a week of 300 crowns, so that would be like 100, between 100 and 150 euros a week we'll get per person. And that's the most simple thing. And then we have, for example, when we do a project, so we have that money coming in, and that helps us. When we do a project, we'll get some money from some kind of organization that wants to work with us. Sometimes we'll do a job inside the city of Copenhagen. So for example, we're working with sorting trash is a very, very big area in Copenhagen right now. And then of course they need help with that. They need help with doing some assignments, and maybe we'll help with that. We also do graphic designs and so on, and we'll get paid for that. Henrik needs your webpage.
Oh, good.
You all participate a little bit to us, and then we actually have an intern, which is actually mine.
Who did that? In fact, Michael, I understood like that. The money is there in that department. They have a very specific client with specific needs. And they will call, for instance, Michael, they know Michael. Michael will go and will say, I can offer this and this and this with paid on a contract basis. This way you are the one selling your services of your organization. Because you are asked as a specialist with a diverse offer to sell your offer to that department. And they recognize on your, let's say, subordinates, they recognize the specialists in web and so on. And you sell these services. Now it's clear for me. The money is public money, but it is not directed directly by the municipality through that department. You are requested time to time when necessary, depends on the client, to deliver a very specialized offer, very specialized tasks.
Yes.
You accomplish these tasks, you receive the money.
Yes.
But the evaluation of the clients and their needs is made by you. You meet the client and you decide what kind of offer is suitable to that one or to that one. Do I understand correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that place where, as I said, it's very important that we're still a workplace.
This is not, for instance, this is not happening in Romania.
No.
Such departments are there, they have their own money, they have their own employees, but they will never go like that. They will never look to a company like yours, a body like this. You are an NGO, you are a public institution. Yeah, they will never go, they will never change the road. We are here, we deliver for handicapped people, for disabled people. We'll never ask near to the corner, to another organization, public, to deliver a specialized service. Never. That's really new for somebody like
And you have to think that it's very much a
very
cooperation.
flexible.
We have to
It's real cooperation.
we have to insist always that it's a cooperation.
This is
And what is also the case, like I don't know if you say it's not like that in Romania. In Denmark, we use internships. Where you go to a workplace and you figure out what you're able to do in real life. They try to do that a lot, but it's very, very difficult because they take up time, and time is money. So the private companies are not crazy about that. They don't do it a lot, and it's very, very difficult to find them. And once you get there, you have a person that are very fragile, and they've been through some stuff, and you have a manager who knows nothing of this, absolutely nothing about this. They work in a supermarket, which is a very common area to do this. They work in a supermarket, and they get an intern, and they put them to work, but they cannot help them with anything. And they might not be very good at introducing people that are a little bit vulnerable to the workplace. It's very, very difficult if you have problems or you're ill to start a new workplace if you're not invited for lunch. And so there's so many things that goes wrong all the time. So you cannot find good workplaces that will open their doors for these interns. So, and we're really, really good at that. We're really good at onboarding them. We're really good at, we do spend a little extra time on team building, and really good at finding that balance between making you a case or making you a colleague. We have to be a colleague, but it has to be in a way that you're able to succeed being a colleague. And what is also like, if you ask me, I'll go a little bit into it. All these departments, every single workplace in the city of Copenhagen has to accept interns. They have to accept
Again,
interns.
it's strange.
So-
in Bulgaria, Romania, and in Hungary, they do not have in the public institutions under specific departments. They do not have capacity to employ internal
No.
staff. Never.
And they don't do it. It's
It's
also a problem here. It's a big problem here.
Even if
And
you
it takes.
employ, there are no people who can do the job as you do.
As you
Because
do.
usually we have an interns.
Yeah.
People with
In public
which are out of university. I have a lot of
You have
finance.
interns
Yes,
in
I do.
public institutions.
Yes, in all of them. The best
Totally
job
new.
after university
We
in
don't
my
have
country
Romania
is
does.
being intern in government.
of
But
course.
you learn nothing there.
Super.
Because they are usually used like there's somebody who will copy something for you, they will do some job that you will never do, and that's a shame because those young people finish the same school as I did or other persons
That
who
is
are
a
there.
great
And we
argument.
don't
Yeah.
have a time to spend like you do. I have a job. I have to do a job which I'm paid for. I don't have so much time to spend with an intern explaining things, especially in the beginning. He just has to go around following me, seeing what I'm doing, and then to try to figure out on their own. And that's the problem. If we had somebody like you who will help and say, okay, this is done like this.
But that is the benefit. You're completely right, because we have organized it a little bit more, and now we're actually able to take all these people. And of course, they're not paid a salary for being here until they're able to do a work.
We
do something.
pay them, but
But-
that's the only thing we do for them.
Can I just
They
run
don't
through-
learn anything,
I
but
have
that's
a really
the
strong
case.
question, a really strong one.
Okay, can I just answer that, because I think that's very important. Can I just do that? But that is also the problem in Denmark, and it's also the problem in Copenhagen. That it takes up time. People don't think of interns, especially not when we're talking interns that are, well, the people that we're working with. I mentioned they were coming back from stress, being out of work because of that and so on. But we also have people that are changing careers because of that fact. We also have people who might have or have had substance abuse problems, for example. We have a lot of young people that might have. Well, I actually know of some of the people from before when we worked with vulnerable kids. I actually see them 3 years later. Then I'll bump into them in this area. So we have a lot of young people that have problems getting through school, getting into a workplace. Those are also people you cannot push them. You take away the money, but you only create a bigger problem. So we have this very diverse group here that we work with. And if you're a young person who's never been in a workplace, you come from a family of great social problems, you might have a learning disability, or maybe nobody knows why it's hard for you. Yeah. You're not gonna be helping in a workplace. There's no way that you're gonna be participating more than you're using resources from some of the employees. So that's the problem here as well. That's what you explained. And you don't really have time, and you don't really know, and then all the paperwork is really difficult, and so on and so on and so on. So that's also what happens here. So what we try to do is like, we have to manage our project. We try at the end of the year, we want to reach 0. Or at least we're going to have a little bit of surplus, and then we'll invest that in. We have to finish every year, we have to finish the books,
To balance.
the balance, yeah. And we'll do that. And that way, that all the work that we do, it's 0. You know, it doesn't cost anybody anything, or at least otherwise they paid for a service that they would have paid for in another place as well. And the alternative is that you have all these, well, of course there's a lot more interns in the city of Copenhagen than we can manage at one point, but otherwise you spread them all over everything. They're in offices, they're in gardening or whatever, they're everywhere. But they take up time. And it's difficult, and people don't like that job. They're interfering, they're asking strange questions in meetings, and so on and so on and so on. You know? And then you have the caseworkers coming, who also wants to come and they want to talk to you. That takes up an hour, you know. And
Just
if they don't show up for work half the time, and you feel bad, and it's difficult to have someone who's not doing a job that you understand, because it's always weird, because Henrik is always sitting in the corner, and it's like, oh shit, I ought to do this, but I really need to do my job. So it doesn't necessarily benefit positively in a way. And of course, sometimes you get really lucky where people really like doing it, but it still takes up resources. So what we do is like, we get it to balance. So we actually save, by doing this, we actually save the city a lot of money. Because when we have 40 people here, that's 40 people that is not taking up time everywhere else. And of course, we do a lot better job. Because we understand what they're going through, and we know which educator they can go to. We have a network. Maybe we can help them, they start here, they get a little bit better, and then we figure out what is it that you actually really want to do. I really, really, really want to be a carpenter. Well, that's great, but you can't add. You know, you got out of school without doing your math test, so it's not possible for you to start. So we have to do this here. We have to get that sorted. So we have to work with that, and that is completely unthinkable that would happen in a normal workplace. That they'll be able to do that. So what would happen is they might be lucky and show up at a workplace where they have a really good 6 months, and then they need to move on to something, and then there's a big break. No. And then all the social skills that they build up, and all the plans and everything, and maybe the caseworker gets a new job. Back up the line, kind of start over, you know. Or maybe it didn't work out, or maybe something happened. Maybe something in the family happened, and now we start over. Yeah. So I don't know if that, at least that. But it's the same here. So that's kind of the point. And of course, you know, we really like people. We like working with them, and especially some of my colleagues, are very, very invested in that part of it, because you also have to be extremely patient sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes they feel like they're working against themselves, and you have to convince them, and you have to try again. They don't show up and something. And we also go that extra mile. Sometimes we actually pick up people at home. And so like, you didn't show up, okay, you know what, are you awake now? I'll come by and I'll pick you up. You live nearby, I'll come pick you up. And we have a young person whose anxiety was quite bad, and it's nothing. She succeeded in showing up for. She didn't succeed in showing up for any of the things that were planned for her. So there were a lot of offers in different places of the city that was open for her, but she wasn't able to get there. So we rode our bike with her. She lived close to me and one of my colleagues, and we picked her up twice a week. And then we did that for 3 weeks, and then she was able to get her on her own. And now she's in an environment where she can actually grow. Now we're in a positive circle instead of always going to zero or fighting people. Okay. Yeah. No, don't mind me. I love speaking about this. Let me just see, because I think I would really like for us to take a quick round, just walk through the house, and I'll show you a few more things, because then it's easier for me to remember some of the details, and hopefully that will give you a better pictures of what I'm talking about and the reason why how we do it.
I still insist.
Yeah. Sorry, you have a question.
I have a strong problem with myself. In a country like our Romania country, because I know it very well, there is not a legal frame to make possible such communication, such cooperation among state institutions. You are in fact a public institution. You act as an NGO in terms of no profit finally. You don't receive directly, you don't have directly a budget from the municipality, but you exist because somebody in other public institutions are asking you come and offer support by contract for special categories of clients. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So the big problem in a country, again like Romania, is that the legal frame is not at all flexible, doesn't permit the existence of such institution as yours.
Well, it's also very difficult. It's a very,
Even-
very
even-
heavy road.
Just a bit, Michael,
Yeah.
let me finish. We are EU member states. Acquis communautaire obliges member states to adapt the national legal frame to acquis communautaire, to EU legislation. So Denmark is a EU member state, Romania is a EU member state. In Romania, you will never act as an NGO, never, as long as you receive money from the state. You indirectly receive money from the municipal budget, selling your offer. That's why you are a real businessman, you are an entrepreneur. In order to
But it is municipality.
But there are some
They are.
formalities like this. You have
But
this
the
public.
No,
we don't go
listen
into
to me.
conclusion.
I'm coming from inside. My wife is a judge. She has had a colleague, public servant of it. Judge is a public servant because it's paid by the ministry. One day she became ill,
He is employed by the
schizophrenic,
city.
and she lost
That's
the
what he said
magistrate.
first, and
No
after,
function.
afterwards,
She was
he
sent
said
home
at the
just like
beginning
that,
of
purely.
each
Instead of having the
they have
possibility
to
that
fight for a
somebody
budget,
like your
even for a
organization
paycheck.
could try to
No,
reinsert her
even for a paycheck.
2 hours per week,
No,
10
that's
hours
what-
per
What's
month,
confusing,
because of the legal
You
frame,
work
legal
for
frame
city,
does
you
not
get paid,
permit.
but you do what
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
not
do.
the legal frame. The problem is that you are thinking top down.
No, it's the
Yes.
legal frame
No,
because
the legal frame doesn't exist here.
it has to be because
No,
of marriage.
because that's why I say
No,
this is
that's
part
why
of
they are Denmark and we are
No,
southern.
no, no, no.
No,
Please
we are
accept. I don't want to be rude.
But-
Without legal frame, you cannot act.
But listen,
What
It's the
what
nation.
is
they
what
act-
is the
but they-
what
no,
kind of legal?
Make law, no
I
law.
can
They
tell
don't
you
do
what
they
kind.
don't do anything
They
The
don't-
illegal.
legal,
You know, it's
just a
nothing
moment. When you sign a
illegal.
contract
Okay.
between public organizations, you have to make reference to the law. If not,
What
the
kind
contract.
of organization?
This is a
Yeah.
public organization.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we are also having public
But
organization.
we are
which
not in a
give
contradiction. I'm telling you,
paycheck,
you
but
don't
they
know
have
the reality at home.
projects to fund.
My dear, you don't know the reality at home. I know the reality.
but
A very specific case with disability because
But
of
you also-
health will never find into a public institution support. Never.
no.
You have to solve it. You have it solve it only in the hospital, not between organizations, public organizations. You cannot have, because the legal frame doesn't permit you. The contract is signed by
In
you
Romania.
as in Romania, and also it's EU member state. You have to sign a perfect contract between you and the employee and the organization as a legal entity. No, I'm talking as a lawyer now. And I identify.
But
this
you're
in
not
the
a lawyer,
law.
you are right in Romania, but I'm
No,
saying it's
no,
not.
but I didn't say, I'm really surprised in a very positive way that here such flexibility does exist. And where is the acquis communautaire?
Yeah.
If the legislation is almost the same in EU member countries, where is this legislation?
But
That was
yeah,
my
I know, but what I'm
question
saying
mark.
is that it's not a question of legalization here and having laws. It's because we have decentralized. Means that the municipality of Copenhagen can decide how they will organize internal,
Oh.
and they don't need. If, for instance, in your example with a lawyer getting out, judge because of illness, she also will get out here.
And that's surprising, it's a problem of legal system because the legal system in Romania doesn't permit decentralization. The institutions are top-down organized. That's because of the legal frame which is not at all permissive, which is really rigid. And this is the biggest problem for citizens. Because
It's also here.
they are in,
We have like,
that's
so
the
like, the longer we go down, we come down to smaller and smaller fractions.
I do appreciate it.
We are,
Your job is super.
we are part of, here we have like 15 ancestors.
It has to be a parliamentary, it's an obligation.
I think we need to have one discussion, so we have a question over here.
Chi finanzia la
Yeah, sorry.
The interns are said to always to public institutions or also
No, you can send them anywhere in
everywhere.
Denmark.
So you have a network of employers also.
Well, you have, every place of business in all of Denmark, you can contact and ask them, would you be interested in receiving
You make the
this
contact.
intern? But that is the caseworker that is over here. The caseworker works over here, so that's their job. But they can send them to any workplace if the workplace agrees. And then there is, when we talk about legislation, there is the... No, it's not a paid internship. They're here, they get their, what do you call that, public benefits. Yeah. So that they can pay their rent and get food. It's not a lot, but they get enough to live on a very basic level. So they live off that, and then they work here. They don't get money here.
So in a way, sometimes you simulate work conditions here in order for them to adapt to the real
Absolutely,
work
absolutely.
environment. And how far do you customize this training? I mean, you have some training courses, whatever, soft skills, or you go very deep inside to fully customized training,
Well,
except for mentoring. Not
We
mentoring.
do what's necessary. Of course, there is a little bit of mentoring, but mentoring is very rarely a matter of sitting on either side of the table and talking about how do you feel today. Because that offer exists many other places, and plenty of people have done that with them. So when they come here, they're at work. But of course, we have to adjust what they're able to do. And if you're a young person with autism, we have a few that actually do have a handicap, and sometimes we'll have 2 at a time, 2 maybe 3 at a time. That has a pretty severe is not the case, but a very clear autism, for example. We can have a few of those, and of course, so we adjust it to where they are. So, but right now we have like a brilliant guy who used to be a project manager at quite a high level, to quite a high salary, and he's been out of it for a few years. And right now, he's just showing up and working out 3 times a week for an hour. That's it, because we have to start there. And of course, that contact between being at home and getting into a workplace, that doesn't exist anywhere else. You have to be able to show up somewhere otherwise. But we know this guy. And also he can see that, okay, there's a red line. I can see if I'm able to show up more, then I can start working. I can see where this is going to end up. And it's not going to shop between 7 different addresses in order to get there. So yeah, so they show up, and this is a place of work. And I'll try and give you some example. I think we should make sure that we spend 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes just walking around, and I'll give you a few examples, because I know this is very, very difficult to explain, and it's a very unique thing also in Denmark. And as I said, like, it's not something that is common here. There's no other workplace like this anywhere in Denmark, and it is very, very difficult. And we have the financing, everything that's difficult, and we also have the legislation that sometimes we rub up against. So we need to find caseworkers that really likes this idea. So they will go a little bit the extra mile to make sure, like, for example, I do not write a report. Everybody else, the caseworker can send them to private companies that do these things, and they'll write a report. But, this is a workplace where they can actually grow within this frame. So that's one of the differences. So we need people that we can cooperate with, and we need to be aware of a lot of things. And basically, once we go down to the system, we are part of a center that has like 15 or 20 addresses, and they work with handicapped people. And I have a boss up here that is willing to take a chance, which is also not common. That's not how you remain on your post in the public sector for a long time. But she's always been willing to do that. So we have a really, really good, innovative boss somewhere. And that's what we pitched the idea to, and then we started up here, So that's also what it takes. So we need, So it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and then you do other. But we are working, so like, if it can work here, it can also work the place where they mow the lawns. Like, why don't you have a department like this, where your quota, the people that we actually want to work, help, that are out of work, why don't you solve it this way? Why do you spend 10 million a year in lost work effort.
Outsourcing.
Yeah, but why do you spend so much time that is wasted? Where it's not good for you and it's not good for the intern. Why not do it this way? This is cheaper. It's actually kind of free to do it the right way. Maybe that would be difficult to do otherwise. We spent quite a few years figuring out how to succeed in that. But at least you can do it a lot better for the same amount of money, for example. That would also be something. That would also be big, you know? So that's what we're working towards. Yeah. Okay, I think it's warm in here. And yeah, sorry.
More work after COVID, more people being affected with anxiety or
It's a very, yeah, it has, COVID has been a very difficult period for a lot of people. First of all, they spent a lot of time at home. We were actually able to be open all the way to COVID. Yeah, but we had to, it was not easy. But then we say like, okay, all the people that show up on Tuesday, they only show up on Tuesday. So we had people like, they cannot stay at home because they will get much worse from it. And then we're lucky because we work with handicapped people, everything has to be open because otherwise, you know, you have to provide a service for these people, no matter what, no matter what the situation is. So this is one of the few places where we actually would be able to stay open and still have a contact. And then we would switch to Teams and we would call them a lot. And maybe we would meet and do a walk just to, while it was worst, the most worst part of it, we would be able to sustain them so that they wouldn't go to zero. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that was not a good period. And if you have anxiety or something, or if you're very determined on your thought process is very unflexible, you know, that's also difficult. Yeah. Okay. Let me just see if I...
Can we...
Yeah. I have like one thing that's also a little bit different here in most places is, as I told you, we have people that are working at a very high level, very, very skilled, and then we have young people who have absolutely no work experience and might have some issues and might not be able to act the way you're supposed to act in a workplace. And that's all mixed together. And that's a big part of why it works sometimes. And sometimes we'll have someone who's, for example, I have a project management, as I told you. He will probably not be able to, for a long time, to work with anything that resembles project management because it will probably be something that triggers his stress. But it might be very important for him to still have something that's meaningful, obviously meaningful for him. So perhaps teaching one of these young people a few hours a week in math or social, some kind of social science or English or whatever they need to be able to move on could be very meaningful. So sometimes we do that actually. So we can do that within this framework. That's a little bit unique, but otherwise we can say like, okay, people recognize that different level and then they'll take a responsibility. And that's also the way you get back to your level. That is doing something where you're pushed a little bit. It's a little bit different, but you find you can see that it's obviously beneficial for another person. So helping another person is sometimes what it's about. But otherwise, of course, when we do projects, we have to figure out how to remotivate people. So that's what I said, like we have to figure out, is there a group of people that would like to work within this area? And then, so when we choose a project, it has to make sense for the people that work with handicapped people. And it has to make sense with the people that are actually supposed to do the job, which is our interns. So, generally we work with saving the world, we work with biodiversity and vertical gardening and compost, sorting of trash indirectly and so on. And that's very meaningful for a lot of people because there is a meaning. It's meaningful in itself, and it's something that's very, this is what is on everybody's mind at the moment. So we save the environment, we help people, or we help people we support people with handicap, where you are like one-on-one or supporting doing an activity that wouldn't otherwise be possible. And those, of course, the people that work with it are people that would like to go into that kind of work, but they have to practice a lot before they do it. And then we have media and IT, and that's a little bit different because that doesn't have to have like a higher purpose, as long as it's so interesting that they would like to do the job. So that is virtual reality, video, building games, all kind of doing graphic design work where they learn new skills as well while doing it. So we can do that as well, but you have to do it at a certain level. You can't do it at an entry level all the time because that's boring. That's not interesting. And you have, especially there, we have a group of people that are somewhere on the spectrum of autism, and they have very difficult time being in a workplace, understanding that, and sometimes they get very tired very fast or something like that. But often they're very, very clever and very, very good at what they do, and they have that specific interest. So if we can put them together and they actually get to work with something that they find really, really interesting, that also works for us. So we figured out that also works. So that's basically what we feel like. You have to be able to find something that is clearly motivating in itself, have a higher purpose, so we can like speak into it, and then that way we never become the bad guy. We never become the bad guy. The bad guy is over here because they force them to do everything, and they might not want to be an intern anyway. But once they get here, we're so nice, we're so inviting, and everything we do for somebody else. So we do it to save the world. So they're never dissatisfied with us. So that's a very important thing. Or we can present them with something that is so uniquely and so interesting that it hits their very narrow interests. So that's how we do it. And we can talk about it for 10 hours more in detail, but I think maybe we need a bit of fresh air and do you agree? Or yeah. So I'll take you, put on your coat, we'll go outside a little bit and I'll take you to, we need like a 2-minute break?
Yes.
Yeah.